So apparently there's some kind of plague because we got one other panelist on the way. One panelist did not confirm, 2 canceled, and apparently Matt Chandler's like really ridiculously sick. Like I talked to him, he sounds like absolute hell. Anyway, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna have our announcements. If you've pitched before or if you haven't pitched before, whatever your project you're working on, remind the whole group. Get us excited about what you're doing. And that's what we're going to do for just the next couple minutes here. So we're going to start with y'all's announcement, and then if you've got anything that you're working on right now, please pitch it. And then we'll keep it rolling. Which panelist is still coming? Erwin. Yeah.
All right, hello everyone. I'm John Sienna, and for those of you who haven't heard of Bitcoin, you'll have the perfect opportunity at the Florida Bitcoin Conference. It's going to be March 22nd. You can find us on FloridaBitcoinConference.com. It's going to be at UF, free to everyone. Everyone from Bitcoin startups, even politicians will be there, and this guy.
I'm Jonathan Wilbur. I'll be giving a lecture at the Florida Bitcoin Conference on crypto anarchism. Bitcoin has some surprising, outstanding, or scary, depending on how you look at it, political implications that I will be discussing at the Florida Bitcoin Conference.
So, love to see you all there, and remember it's free, FloridaBitcoinConference.com. Thank you.
When is it?
March 22nd.
Somebody else should be writing this because mine is the worst handwriting ever, and I probably spelled conference wrong. Please don't think it rude, but I do actually have to go. That's fine. All right, we had another announcement before we had pitches, right? Did we? No? Yeah. Yes. Okay, great.
All right, so let me load up the PowerPoint.
Oh, it's getting fancy.
Oh, you want to use your Mac?
No, I got a USB drive.
Oh, it's
Probably written on it.
Hi everyone, my name's Eric. So basically I went to Start Week in Jacksonville about 2 weekends ago. And it was there I met this guy right here, Chris Markle. He's an awesome guy. He's a professor actually. He teaches economics. And it was there that we got 3rd place. And we actually have a venture capitalist meeting tomorrow. And so just really quick, if everyone could give a round of applause for this guy. I'm gonna pitch you guys.
Yeah, kind of. We'll do a quick pitch on our team. We ended up with a great team. Connor is also a student here at UF, and we came in 3rd place. There was originally like 40 teams, so it was good. So I'm going to give you a couple-minute pitch on what we're doing. So we're a re-startup, and it's a platform where a struggling startup gets a second chance. So each year, there are 5...
You can use this to click through.
Oh, so each year there are 6 million new startups in America alone. 6 freaking million new startups. And each year there are millions of entrepreneurs that want to start a new business. Right? So the market is huge in regards to creating new startups. We know the failure rates, right? Have you guys heard this in your classes? Failure rates of startups? Like it goes from anywhere from 80% to like 95%. What does that mean? Each year, there are millions and millions of startups that fail, right? But what does failure mean, right? Oh, sorry, I use it on a Mac, and since we're on a Windows now, it looks stupid. But what does failure really mean, right? To create any business, it takes an insane amount of work. Like thousands and thousands of hours of hard work to create any business. I mean, really smart people spend an inordinate amount of time just to find a supply chain, to find customers, to get a website going, to get everything. It's really difficult. I mean, if you started a business yourself, you know this, right? But at some point, what happens is entrepreneurs run out of time, money, or energy, right? and they quit. And when you quit, that business that you created, that value that you created, goes untapped, right? Think about Thomas Edison, right? How many times did it take him to figure out the light bulb, right? Like, it took him hundreds of times. Through those first 150 failures, there is value in them, right? So, but what's if he gave up then? All that value would go untapped. So we don't think it's failure. We just think that failure isn't being employed. So we're creating a solution. We call it a bridge of value. Specifically, a platform where an entrepreneur can post a business or a nonprofit that he no longer wants to work on, and a new entrepreneur can apply to take that over. Like, we are sitting in Entrepreneurship Club, right? You guys want to start businesses, right? Imagine if you could start a business not from scratch, but with an amazing idea already, and already a track record, customers, supply chain. You would be like years down the road. You'd be starting a business at day 500 instead of day 1, right? You're talking about lowering the cost of entry. And so that's really what we're trying to create here at your startup. So when you're talking about pitching, it's all about value to customer. So the seller, the existing entrepreneur, what is the value of Restartup to them? So my last business was amazing. I sold products to 20 countries, was featured on CNN, traveled the world. It was awesome. But I'm done working on it. I'm done pouring money and time and energy into it. So I'm watching the value of my company depreciate each day. You know, and it's eventually going to depreciate to zero. It's like a car sitting in your front yard, just not going anywhere. Eventually it's just going to stop working and be worth nothing. So I can post this for a few dollars and find someone to take it over. Because otherwise it's going to deteriorate to zero. So obviously there's value in Restartup for the seller. The buyer, it's all about the bargain. It's all about reducing the barriers to entry. You guys could start an established business today, you know, if Restartup was out there. And that's really what we want to tap into. We really want to tap into college students, part-time entrepreneurs, people who have full-time jobs, and we really want to make them entrepreneurs or enable them to become entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship isn't about your business. Everyone says focuses on your business, but it's really about you. You know, by starting a business, by going to an investor meeting tomorrow, we will become better, and that will help us down the road. And so the value is, if you lower the cost of entry, more people can get into entrepreneurship. So our business model, it's very simple. You know, it's really like a Craigslist style. The idea that someone can post a business for a flat fee, very small, a few dollars. You can post a nonprofit, for-profit for a few dollars. Anyone, it's free to view and it's free to apply to take that business over. We don't handle the transaction, and we make a little money on business brokers or lawyers who want to list as well. We think a lot of the money is in the future. We really want to corner the startup turnaround industry. If we can understand what makes that business have a second chance and take off, both in the search, the data, the attributes of the entrepreneur, vetting, things like that, we think that will be high value to VCs. But that's down the road. Right now we're focusing on just building a platform. The competition, there's already business platforms out there to buy and sell. But the problem is, we already know the failure rate, right? It's like 80–90% of failures. All of the competition is working on successful businesses. So they're actually missing the vast majority of the marketplace. So we can actually get far more listings as a result of the vast majority of businesses fail. And our marketing is pretty simple. You know, we just reach out to the startup ecosystem. Entrepreneurship Club, startup weekends. You know, this is everything in Northeast Florida. And you look around there, there's 500,000 entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. So tomorrow we're just asking for some seed funding, nothing too crazy. So that's us a Restartup. Yeah. So questions? Yeah.
So how do you maintain the quality of the listings on there?
That's not our
Not a
issue.
problem?
Yeah, I mean it's a problem, right? Quality is always a problem, but the seller themselves posts on their own and promotes it on their own, right? We just provide, it's like Kickstarter, right? How do they maintain the quality, right? They provide guidance, but at the end of the day, if someone posts a shitty Kickstarter, that's their own problem, right? The seller has incentives to post a quality listing because that will result in more applications for them, right? And in fact, something that's really interesting about our marketing is that it's really based upon the sellers promoting it themselves, right? So my last business, Courage, I would post it on, when I posted a listing on Restartup, I would post it on the Courage Facebook page, right, which has followers throughout the world, you know, Twitter, things like that. And that would revert back to the site itself. Yeah. Would you guys be interested in, so this is the big question we wrestle with. Would college students be interested in taking over a company listed on Restartup? Or what? Yeah, maybe. We got one, yeah. A couple, yeah. If there's an idea you're interested in your realm of possibility, like, what's preventing you guys from entrepreneurship now, right? Or if you guys are.
If I can have a vision of the actual startup, if I can create one,
Yeah.
just from reading like the description or whatever, I would consider.
So that's like, so this is something we just discussed a few minutes ago. Like, you guys are in Entrepreneurship Club. You are our target audience, and like, we would like to kind of, because Eric's is here all the time, and we would like to come back and maybe like potentially work with you guys on how we could sell college students throughout the nation on the benefits of this, because it's really the case that starting it with an established startup really makes it much cheaper in time, energy, and gets you into entrepreneurship. Because, you know, when I started my last business, which was amazing, I learned through so much, even through the failure. Like, I just gained so many market. I mean, I have stories on CNN. I met with presidents of countries. I met, like, it was crazy. And I learned a lot of skills, and that's, like, helping me professionally. So we really want to learn from college students how we can sell the idea of working with an established startup. So if you guys wouldn't mind, maybe we come back and in the future and do questions or learn from you guys. Yeah?
Why did you stop that business?
Because I went $25,000 in debt, and like, you know, life goes on, man. It's difficult, right?
It sounded like it was successful though.
I mean, you know, I slept in tents with the Olympic gold medalists, you know, like, which is awesome, and have friends that are like the world champions and runners and cool experiences. But it's really hard to get investors. Like, try to convince someone you don't know to give you $100,000. You can watch Shark Tank, but when you're doing it, it's really effing hard. And fashion was really difficult, so, you know, we just couldn't get the cash. Yeah.
Maybe I missed part of the presentation, but what is the business model behind this concept?
Yeah, so our initial business model is just, you know, this is a low-cost platform, right? So think Craigslist, but charging a listing fee, right? That's really what we're doing. That's the easiest way to capitalize it.
What's being transacted? What are you buying when you go to one of these listings?
So we don't handle the transaction, but it's really an asset sale, right? So the business, if you think about me and Courage, my company, it's really my contacts, it's really my business plan, it's really the track record, things that are electronic, right? I think the businesses that would be successful on Restartup aren't ones like, they're not going to be the failed bakery or something. That might be more difficult, right? We're talking about companies you would see at a startup weekend or that you would want to start, largely tech, electronic assets, things like that. The easiest way for the transaction is an asset sale, though, because that would limit the risk for the future, for the buyer.
Yeah. I would be interested. I would need like examples of how this has ever worked or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I know one really good example from Mr. Rossi's class, with the entrepreneurship teacher here. He brought in the Papa John's guy, who took over a failing Papa John's store over on, I think, on 13th. And it was failing, losing money. The guy gave it to him for nothing. And he went and made, I don't know, 12 Papa John's in Gainesville or something like that. Something ridiculous. Like, he is the #1 most sales of Papa John's in the country now. Yeah, that would be like a good example.
That's another way to think about it, right? Like Eric brought this up, is the idea that I might have had the expertise to, so here's the problem. So this thing right here, this, I don't know anything on PowerPoint, I'm so sorry. I only use Mac, so I don't know. So this graph right here is like really famous. It's by the Y Combinator guy. This idea that you start a business, you're really excited, you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then after a while, you're like, oh shit, this is really difficult, this is really effing hard. And that's the truth of any business. It's just a million times harder than you think, right? And over time, you just hit this thing called the trough of sorrow, and you just can't move it forward. And this is where like 80–90% of the businesses fail. You just run out of time, money, and energy. You're just like, you just run out of it. And the idea is that maybe, we call this a failure, but it's really you were successful. You gained all this value, and maybe someone else can take it off. Maybe the Papa John's guy was successful to that point, but someone else with other necessary skills, you know.
He had better marketing skills, it seemed like, and better management skills. But the other guy, like, it was very easy for him to take over a business and do really well with it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, if you guys don't mind us coming back, helping us figure out how we can sell Restart to college students. Any more questions? Anything? Yeah?
Does the seller make any money off of this?
So
Could you make the profit of the $7.95?
Yeah. So the seller, here's the interesting thing. So my past company, right, it's all my connections are depreciating each day. I could give like you 75% of the company or something, right? I can retain equity. And for you, you get this amazing track record, all this stuff, but I'm sort of betting on you, right? And so it's a way for me to stay in the game in my business. And also it's a way that your business doesn't die. You know, there's something really sad when you work 10,000 hours on something and it dies. And to see it continue, I think is pretty awesome, and to help another entrepreneur.
So it just depends on each transaction? Like
Yeah, but we're really thinking no cash, you know? Like we think the real benefit is here, the selling entrepreneur would basically give it away to someone they like, someone who's interested, excited. You know, I'm not just going to give it to some random person, but someone who's like, yeah, I want to take this over and learn from it. Right? Why not? So that's a good question. Anything else?
Would you consider a website like careerbuilder.com to be your competitor?
Not Career Builder. The competitors there's no one in this market, so we're sort of creating a new market. And so that's what's kind of exciting. You could really think of the business model as the aesthetics of a Kickstarter with the functionality of a Craigslist, right? You know, it's a directory-like model. So the only competitors are other places where you can sell and buy businesses. But we think if you get in the startup ecosystem, there's a lot of value.
Yeah. Well, we'd definitely be glad to have you back at Entrepreneurship Club. The whole focus of this semester is exactly what you hope to do, which is you start in with a business, you vet it some, you tackle that. Middle of the semester, we're going to check up with you on progress. We don't have speakers and panelists this time. We have consultants. That's their primary purpose, is to help you make your business better. And by the end of the semester, we're going to be doing a venture plan competition, pitch competition with judges who are actual venture capitalists. So that's not just an opportunity for you, but for everybody in the room here. That's what you're working toward. Every time, every day, every week, you need to be reminding yourself that's what techs do, and that's why you're here. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got one more person at least who I know will pitch, which is Ivan. Is there anybody who's going to go before Ivan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. And then right after this, we're going to transition to the panel. Yeah, the same old 1 minute pitch, just keeps the iron sharp. Yeah, sure. You want the timer? It's a race between me and Saru's phone. And go.
Hey guys. Hey guys. I'm Lexi, and my product is Lit Helmet. And like the name, it is a helmet that lights up, but not just for fun, to help prevent further injuries to players or whoever's wearing the helmet. So the premise of the helmet is whoever's wearing it, if they sustain a high enough impact that sensors in the helmet will trigger a light, and then the helmet will light up. And that indicates to the player, to the coach, to whoever's watching, that this player needs some attention. He or she may have suffered some type of trauma, and that's it.
Awesome. Let's close up pitch's eye, unless we got one more person.
Yes, I'm Lexi, was that
Yeah.
You should come talk to me afterwards. I have someone in town that I want you to talk to with regard to a helmet.
Okay, thanks.
This is why we pitch our ideas every meeting, is because you don't know who in the room is going to have something to help you. That's why we do it.
Hey, can I just?
Yeah, if you want to. You actually got something to pull up now.
Yeah, so do you want a time on your phone?
Yes, we can do.
Okay, cool. So my name is Ivan, and I'm working on a project called SpinChill. So basically, SpinChill is a web app that allows you to do bartering of what items that you don't want for items that you want. So it's very simple. We have a prototype that is ready, but we have to code the actual app from scratch. So how it works is very simple. You have an item that you don't want in your house, like for example, a water bottle or a skirt that you don't want anymore. You take a photo, you put it on the web app. It's not loading. Yeah, so this is our prototype. So you see there's a lot of items available, and you set a time limit to the items that you have. And this is the item that you want to trade, and this is the item that you want to switch. So basically it's very simple. How it works is you click on this item, and then you go to the switch item, and you decide with the other party which items you want to switch. So that's the basis of how it works. So if you're really interested to be one of our first-time users, please like our Facebook page. Just go onto Facebook app and search for SpinChill. It's really simple. Switch as in switching items, and tick as in ticking off the clock. Thanks.
Yeah. What? You got it? Okay. Use the fear. Let it grow. Let it become fury.
Okay. All right. So, you guys, have you guys ever seen like these big office buildings, right? And they have all these different offices inside of them. And I thought about doing something where I could add a decoration, a unique kind of decoration to the office. I want to put a fish tank, a little cute fish just right there in a natural environment. The fish tank could be set up in a very unique way, and it will just add a different aesthetic to the actual office. I named the company Nemo Industries. We found Nemo.
Chelsea. Yeah. All right. So I think that's everybody, right? Right? Going once, going twice. Great. So by show of hands, who here is working on something that you're hoping to prototype today, or learn more about prototyping? Great. 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 Even better. How much of it's software? How much of it's hardware? All right. How much of it's electronics? Okay. And how much of it's something kind of else? All right. Yeah. Some of that too. So we planned to have way more hardware people, but they all flaked. So I'm the closest thing right now that we have to a hardware person, and if I had to show a video of what I personally have done with hardware, it's basically taking an off-the-shelf product, adding a small amount of differentiation value to it, maybe a step above marketing. But the fact is there's a lot that you can do in the prototyping space, and especially with physical products that's accessible with that. When I was doing that, that was before the dawn of 3D printers. The other two we have are definitely in software, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to set some chairs up. I'll moderate, and do you want to introduce yourself? Great. Yeah, let me get some chairs at the front of the room. Oh, yes, we have hardware. Awesome. Where am I? I just rolled your chair. Do we need the table? I don't think so. I think that this will be all garage actually. Unless we get some miracle matte covers or Ty and Trevor can come with what they have going on. Alright,
I got you. You doing it? You coming up?
Yeah.
So I'll be the panel moderator today. That's kind of one of several very terrible photos of the project I did, which was called WolfDisc. WolfDisc is now defunct because it wasn't making as much money per hour as literally anything else I could be doing, and that happens sometimes. Basically what we did was we consulted with a Chinese manufacturer to get contract manufactured Ultimate Frisbee discs, and we basically took the guesswork to some extent out of that by guaranteeing that if you messed them up, we'd replace them, and we also added a little bit of fairy dust in the form of a special grip material that we actually applied to the discs. And that's kind of not really any of what these folks would call prototyping. I don't think so. I would call it more differentiation than it was practicality. But it's definitely really interesting what can be considered physical versus perceived. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned from WolfDisc was, we sold these things for $50 for a Frisbee. And we sold a pretty good deal with them. We made a profit overall. And that's one thing to think in entrepreneurship. Pricing is huge. But just from left to right, you want to do a quick intro of yourself and what you specialize in?
Sure. My name is Matt Carroll. I'm a software developer by education. I created a startup called ParkSmooth back in 2012 that we ran for 9 months before we became part of that 90% failure statistic that you saw a few minutes ago. Since then, I've worked for a couple of app development shops around town. I now run my own company doing app development called Swamp Mobile. And I'm now looking to get into some prototyping work here around town. I even have a couple of hardware concepts of my own.
Great. Mark.
So I'm Mark Davidson. I am spinning out from UF. I've been a faculty member at UF for a long time, but the last few years I've been focusing more on the Florida Tech Toy Box. We are a sort of a maker space, but what we're doing is giving you a place to work, giving you tools to work with, and coaching on how to bring your ideas to life. We're early stage proof of concept prototypes, and we operate in a number of ways. We say, well, you can come in and work, or you can have us make something for you, or you can come and work on somebody else's project. And I'm sure we'll do more details later.
Definitely. Erwin?
My name is Erwin Felicilda. I have a company called Rhino Mob Production, Rhino Mob Games. I make mobile games. I know a few people here, but not a lot of people really know about what I do. I'll definitely share some of those knowledge before I leave. It's actually my last night here in Gainesville. I was packing when this guy called me. So I come through. I'm actually moving to San Francisco. He's out of Gainesville for a couple of days.
My name is Chris Cordell. I started a cell phone business when I was 18. I owned it for 3 years before it unfortunately went belly up. Then I went into real estate and sold real estate for a couple of years until the market turned, and then I found myself bankrupt, and unfortunately, so I decided to go back to school to become an engineer, and I found myself here at University of Florida, and for the past 8 months I was working as a software developer for Bartender, and so that's my experience.
Great. We've got a much better panel than I expected, which is fantastic. So I guess I'll start with a couple of my usual terrible moderated questions, and then the audience will no longer be afraid to ask their much better questions. So I guess the first question is somebody comes in with with a napkin drawing, what would you say is the next step if they want to turn that into something they can actually validate for whether or not they can move forward with the concept? And just from what's right.
Yeah, I guess I'll assume for my purposes that this is an app that
Yes.
they've drawn on a napkin. I'm a big fan of paper prototypes, which is this paradigm of testing a value proposition without building anything. And with mobile apps, it's exceptionally easy because you can take little note cards and draw your user interface on them. And you can literally put them in front of a prospective user and say, start clicking, start accomplishing these tasks. And you switch out those cards as they go through it. And you'll be amazed how many things you thought were super obvious that none of these users can seem to figure out. And so you might find a lot of websites and apps where you find it very difficult to navigate through it. It's because no one went through this process. They thought it would make sense, they gave it to users, and no one can get through the app. So start at the cheapest and simplest way possible. Again, I use note cards for apps all the time, and understand how your users think and what your users hope to get out of your system before you dump money into a full-fledged app.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think that's exactly right. I think in the app world, that's sort of the equivalent of what we do. We say, get in there and tinker a little bit. Make sure it's going to actually work. You don't have to spend a lot of money to make something ugly just to know if it's going to work. The thing I would say, and what I try and get people to do before they even start building anything, whether it's is do a hard, quick but hard, cold-hearted analysis of can you make money at it. And usually you can come up with some estimates. There's going to be lots of assumptions and all, but you can say, okay, you know, I could sell these medical devices for $100 or even $600, but you know what? The total world market is 10,000. At that point, you really don't have a company. I mean, you could get, it's a one-person company, right? It's not something that you would probably move forward with. But you know, once you've done that and you know that you've got a clear path, then I would say do the cards, do the sketches, and then once you've got the napkin drawing, build it in a way that is not spending a lot of time and a lot of money. Do it. You ought to be thinking weeks, not months, in putting these things together.
What these two said, basically, and I'll add it to it too. I've created 205 mobile games in the past 8 months. So regarding testing, I kind of know a little bit about that. What I do in research is typically you select whatever idea it may be, but first thing you have to find out definitely is there a user base right now for it? I don't care if you like it, does everybody else like it? So that's the first thing you have to do. People ask me how do I do research. It's like I look at the App Store. I'm assuming this is going to be an app, like what Matt said. And I look at the top 50. For example, we'll just go by games because that's the industry I'm in. And people say like, how do you choose what kind of gameplay you like? This and that. I was like, okay, it's the simplest thing as possible. You see a lot of dragon games. You see a lot of war games. Guess what? Make a war game or a dragon game. Piggyback on existing niches or trends currently, and put your own little twist to that too. And typically that's what I've been doing the past year now, and it's worked out for me quite well. I mean, my business model is completely different from, you know, like I'm not racing around. I mean, my model itself is pretty healthy. I mean, I make a good living as a lifestyle business, but I set it up that way. But it's the same formula how you start from the beginning. You know, don't spend any money don't spend more than $500. You can make an app. I made an app for $75. Made $5 grand in a month with that $75 I spent. So yes, you can make something really cheap. Better yet, find smart developers who have existing wireframes, offer them money, which I do all the time. I say, hey, I like that app that you have there. You're not using it. I'm going to give you $1,000. Got to have the rights for it. And most of the time, they give me that source code, and I have an existing wireframe. you know, I didn't spend 3 months, 6 months putting it together. I have everything set up for me, and I just put additional features that I wanted to put in there. And that's not exactly how I've done it for the past year. So definitely save money. You know, be lean as possible. Don't. You know, I had $1,000 that started. It's like, how can I make $5,000 in a month? That's exactly. Don't think of racing whatever money. Start with what you have right now. Trust me, you'll get creative in how you can make money really fast if you don't have anything else. So, but my background is in marketing. I don't code. I don't do any of those at all. So,
yeah. So one of the things I learned over in 500 was just I was part of 500 Startups Accelerator Program, and one of the things I learned from the people there was that if you have an idea, you can just simply create a landing page, a quick website, and you can just market that and just gauge the interest that customers have in your idea. You just have an email, add me for more info, and you can kind of like market that and advertise that however you want in order to gauge to see if you've got something that might be a hit. And if you do, and if you start to get a couple hundred signups or a couple, then obviously you've got something that you should go ahead and expand on. And if you have you're like some people where they have like 20 or 30 ideas at once and they're not sure which one to go with, that's a perfect solution for you. You can create little landing page apps for each one and kind of gauge interest and see which one might be the best hit for you. I also learned that once you actually start to build the product, that analytics are incredibly important in improving so you want to set up your website or your product with technology that you can gauge how your product's being used, and you can see like what your click-through rate is on your website, so you go put them through a funnel process, and you can optimize different processes to increase your usage and to optimize your marketing campaigns as well. So I think that it's something, there's something to, you can even, before you've built the product, you can start to gauge the interest just by making simple sites and talking to customers that you think would be a fit for it. So anyway.
Always be testing, actually.
Yeah. ABT.
That's awesome. I did more or less the same thing with mine before we had any idea how we would actually acquire this thing that we wanted to sell that was a physical product. We put up a landing page and basically had a buy it now kind of link where it looked every bit like a payment processing page right up to where you would put in your credit card numbers. And then once you basically went and proceeded from that, we didn't keep any of that information. We said, hey, we're out of these. We didn't store any of your account information. Enter your email if you're interested in hearing it back when you get it. And we could tell when people dropped off from each one of those pages because it was pretty much built in. And that's a pretty good way. If people have any way of finding you, you might do some preliminary Google or Facebook advertising, but as Erwin said, like, you're not going to sink more than $500 into that. Probably 75 is fine to really see if, of the people who see this, any want to get it. So number 2, crappy moderator question before I go to audience questions. Is there anything that you think that I got to think of a crappy question. I'm bad at this. Are there cases where you would say that prototyping is unnecessary, either because something's absolutely bonkers or because something's so good it should go straight into development?
I don't distinguish outside of paper prototyping, which is maybe a few days, I don't distinguish a lot between prototyping and actually launching a business. When I created ParkSmooth and we built a couple online platforms, that whole 9-month period of building and testing and trying to run a business was an experiment. It was an experiment in business. It was an experiment that didn't turn out the way we thought it would. Our hypotheses were proven wrong. But if you're not running an experiment, you're not really a startup. You are a standard business with a proven business model. That is not the definition of a startup. So personally, I see the question that way. You're always prototyping, you're always testing.
Okay. And I would say that this is the hardware guy. for 90% of the startups, and I like Matt's definition, right? If you're not in production, you don't have a product that you've been selling for 10 years. You're a startup, right? And to do that, if you have this idea and if you try to go straight to production, you're almost always going to sink a lot more money into it than you intend. Now, I mean, a Frisbee is a different thing, right? Frisbees are out there, there's people that make them. But for most things, you might say, okay, I've got this production, I'm gonna set up, I'm gonna order 10 of these, and the parts all come in and you assemble it, and the glue turns the lens purple. And you can't foresee all of those things happening. That's where the rough prototyping comes in. You have to at least say, I know that this will work. Because you're going to spend, I mean, even for small technical items, you're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars in manufacturing to do a manufacturing run. So, unless it's just a super simple object, you're going to sink a lot of money, and you better know that before you spend 10 grand, you better know that you've solved the technical problems. So, but the idea is do it fast. That's exactly right. If you're spending more than 2 or 3 months building and testing, you're probably going to be out of money before you ever sell your first widget.
To just respond to that. My favorite rough prototyping is pretty much what SpinChill did. It's unfortunate that neither of them came tonight, because basically what they said is, well, let's just put a 3D printed rubber cast thing on a hex wrench and put that sucker in a drill, and not build any motor, and not build a self-contained unit, and see how many rednecks we can get to buy the thing that's totally unfinished. And they funded their continued prototyping by selling half of a product.
And that's testing a value proposition. Absolutely. They weren't testing whether they could build a motor and make it look pretty. They wanted to know if we can spin a can around in ice, 1, does it get colder faster, and 2, do people care that their beer's colder faster? And they did it in the fastest, cheapest way possible, and they've had great success, from doing business that way.
Definitely good points. A good case study for me would be finding a market for a specific gameplay. While I was in college, I paid for most of my stuff with playing poker, so I'm a big poker player. So before they shut down and everything. So the closest thing that small success was I started a couple of games focusing in casino games. I knew exactly that the casino market was really big and very competitive as well. But I had existing codes that I had rights to, and really simple too. A few, and I got the code, it was buggy, so I had my developers actually fix it a little bit. I spent 3 of those codes, 3 games for casino, 1 was an endless play game. I spent $3,200. In 6 months, those 4 games, mind you, I didn't do any marketing, just focusing on optimizing those games and targeting those niches as slot machines. In 6 months, that made $30,000. So obviously, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to make more slots game after that. So I mean, the point is really, don't kind of overthink things, just push it forward. I mean, I made that app within a week, the first one. Then after that, it was the same source code, change up everything else, new theme. 2 more was made after that. So within a month, I had 4 apps, launched that, then made that much money at the end. So, and remember also, when you start seeing cash flow in your business, reinvest that back every single time. So now I'm able to, I have a run rate that's really, really healthy. I'm able to invest in other things, bigger things as well. When you get to that point, when you approach investors, at the end of the day, investors they want to make sure that they're going to win. So if they ask for a performance or anything like that, it's, hey, here's some made up numbers. Half of it's made up, but hey, in a year I made this much money. But you have something to show for it, instead of just hypothesis or anything like that. But you at least kind of have some sort of proven concept at the end of the day. If it takes you 1 month to 3 months do it. I mean, the shorter the better. You know, don't like at the end of the day, just don't spend this, don't spend money that you really don't have. You know. But,
Yeah, just done is better than good, and just get it in people's hands as fast as possible and get their input, and that's.
and, I mean, I can add that to bartenders, say, and you know exactly what you guys want to do.
Oh yeah, definitely, I think probably everybody at Bartender wishes that we had launched sooner and that we had not been so slow to go to market, that we had a good enough product to get in, you know, earlier than we did, and so that was a mistake that Bartender probably made, but you know, it's
what I tell the people that are building hardware is just be selling.
Yeah.
Sell that number one, as long as it's functional, if it's not going to embarrass you, get it out there, and as you're selling that one, even before you start selling that one, be thinking about version 2.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? That's great. That's a great way to make money.
So to go back again with testing these prototypes, apps, and whatnot. Who else here is building apps or games or anything like that? Okay. So a couple. When you test your apps, your alpha or beta, launch it in specific countries. Like I call it the big four. So you have U.S., Canada, UK, and also Australia. Their numbers are typically the same, and also the amount of downloads you can get from those are about similar. So when you do a beta, launch in one of those countries. Get the data you need from that. Then you move forward again. Yes, Will.
Oh, now it's all audience questions, and I'm not going to ask any more stupid questions. It's up to y'all to ask all the smart questions that I can think of. So go ahead.
Yeah, now that you mentioned data, is it like illegal to have like all the data coming from all over, but the data center is in one country? Like, do you have to deploy different data centers in different countries? Is there any legislation for that?
I mean, I'm using what kind of data? I mean, you
analytics based? Have something that is like targeting like more than one country. Like, do you need to deploy different data centers in different countries, or you can have just one?
Yeah, depends on your application, right? Yeah. I mean, is speed absolutely necessary for your application to work good? Does it affect
I think he's talking about legality. Talking about legal issues.
Legal issues.
So I haven't heard of any legal issues like that.
Yeah.
And think about how many people use Amazon's cloud services, and those by nature you don't often know where they are, and yet a lot of people use them. So I'd say by evidence, there's probably no legal issue there.
I have forgiveness.
Next.
So this question is actually for Erwin. What's up, man?
What's up, bro?
So I was gonna ask you. I'm also a marketing major, and I'm really into like the tech field. But obviously, like I don't really care to learn how to code. But I'm interested in technology, and like I like what you do is really interesting. So, from your advice or perspective, if you like, how did you learn about like coding? Like up to what level makes you comfortable to like be in the business and like talk about it?
First, definitely learn how to code. I'm actually teaching myself.
Okay.
It's a skill set that you really imagine yourself as a coder, right? You're a developer, but if you're missing the link as a marketer or whatever else, you're not complete. You can't really do much of anything. You're a great developer. You pump out a lot of apps, but if you don't know how to market it, what's the point, right? Some guy like me can market the shittiest product and make a lot of money. But you need to make sure you know that skill set. As a marketing guy, I knew exactly that I wanted to have a specific. I started as an art major actually, so I was an artist, still an artist. So majority of the things that I push out my apps, I usually sketch it out and give it to my designer. The missing link was me learning how to code, right? So what I did was I learned enough, frankly, to not get screwed over by people that I hired. So like know enough to be able to communicate with your developers. Like if you ask, I want to integrate this SDK and this app, how long would it take? If they tell you like 5 hours, and like after that, I learned I could do it myself in 30 minutes or less, then they're bullshitting me. So you're gonna milk you from your money. At the end of the day, people will do that. especially if you're hiring out. So know enough and how that world revolves. For one thing, you're respected as a business owner as well. You're hiring somebody. Like, last thing you want to do is like you work for somebody else, and their major is maybe like, I don't know, art major, and you're running a business. How can art major help you out? You know, and he's your boss. But they need to know enough to make sure they can help you out. So
I think that's absolutely critical. What we do is when we bring in a project, and a lot of times it has software in it as well. I'll put together, so say a company comes to me with this, I put together a team of 2 to 4 interns on that. I always include somebody with business or marketing background. I always include somebody with the hands-on, if it's hardware, make sure they can, you know, they're comfortable in the shop. And, so on this team, there's a variety, but just like a startup, right? If you're a startup of 2 or 3 people, you may be the marketing guy, but you're going to be at the drill press. And if the engineer on that team is not thinking about the marketing, he's wasting space. He's building stuff that isn't going to sell. And so everybody, when you're in that, 2 to 10 people, everybody needs to be doing everything. Everybody's pulling in the same direction, and you got to be ready to jump in. And so for coding, yeah, you got to be able to say, hey, I can look at your code and see that it's crap.
Right. Exactly. And the biggest thing there as well is you need to learn how to delegate really quickly, really efficiently as well. My employees are all overseas. I've always outsourced in 2007, so I'm used to, hiring somebody overseas, and I'm comfortable with that. Some of these guys had worked with me since the very beginning, and these guys have like a team of 50 now or more. So, but you learn really quickly how, like, micromanaging, probably not gonna be, micromanaging is like, I hate micromanaging. So you find these individuals who are really, really good at what they do, and get to a point where you can trust them to just leave them be and do what they need to do to get it done. So at times you have to let go.
Yeah, if you feel like you have to micromanage, you've got the wrong person in that slot.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a physical design. So my question is a little bit relative in the sense, how much time do we need to spend in designing and something if we can simulate rather than make a prototype and we can see whether it functions or not, and then go for a prototyping? Would that save us money, or are we spending a lot of time just kind of
So there's a balance there, right? We need to have some understanding that I don't know which prototype it is, but let's just say we need to have some understanding that the physics are going to work, right? So if you need to simulate something and say, okay, I can do these calculations and this is going to work, or it has the potential to work. Now, how do I build it? Some people will tell you, yeah, do everything in CAD, model everything, and then put it together. I'm not of that realm for most items, because I've seen so many companies go under where, and the classic one, I'd say at least 50% of the companies that I've worked with over the years, the classic one is they have this beautiful vision of what their product is going to look like. They spend a month and $10,000 or $20,000 getting gorgeous drawings made of every part. They send them out all over the world. They come back, another 2 months and $30,000 later, and they've got this stack of gorgeous parts. They sit down, they assemble it, and it doesn't work. Now you're 3 months down the line, you've spent $50,000 or $100,000, and you've got a gorgeous box that doesn't do anything. And the problem is, it's like I just said, you can't predict everything in your model. There's materials issues. That's the glue turning the lenses color. That's a real example, right? Glues can turn lenses. You don't know that until you actually get in and build it. Now, the other thing is that if it is something where you're going to have to go out and find capital, right? You're going to have to raise capital. Nobody is going to fund you for a set of drawings. But if you have an ugly prototype in your hand, and it can have a leg sticking out this way, and if you set it down on the table and it does what you say it could do, now you're a fundable company, right? You have done, and the funding pitch is, look, it works, it does what it says, all I need your money for is to do the final designs and go to manufacturing. That's an easy step, right? There's challenges there too, but that's the easiest. The hard part is making the ugly one and solving those problems. Unless it's, unless your product is, I need to injection mold 2 parts and snap them together, yeah, you don't need to build that ahead of time, right? You could model that. But for most things, for most hardware, you gotta actually spend some time, and you can outsource all of that. But if you outsource it, so example, there are 2 companies in the last 6 months that have hired us to extract them from outsourced manufacturing, because it worked great for a month, and then they sort of have lost control of their designs. They don't know what's, there have been design changes that are not satisfactory. Their pipelines are now 6 or 8 months instead of 2 weeks, like they were when they started. And if they had done their own internal problem solving, it would have been easy for them to say, you know what, I don't need you. Now I've got a group of people that I can bid out my manufacturing to because I know how to make it. Okay?
Yeah, and to kind of add on the hardware example, making something ugly that works does play a little bit tied into marketing with human psychology, because we have this bias that it's always easier to make something look okay than to make something work, which generally tends to be the case. Get something that's, plug it into the side of cordless drill so that you don't have a self-contained unit, but as soon as you introduce motion to it, it does what it's supposed to do. Versus trying to have something that's streamlined and aerodynamic and looked like it came from an IKEA catalog that may or may not work. It's get something to work first is always.
You're just trying to give your potential investors or whoever's going to pay your manufacturer, you're just trying to give them an idea and make sure they have, there's a clear vision on how you're going to go from here to making money.
And even if it's not investors, introduce a different perspective. Kickstarter audiences, if you look at the graveyard of unfunded Kickstarters, you'll see some gorgeous 3D models, lots of them. You look at the Kickstarter models that's made 4 or 100 times what they wanted to raise, it's because they got something that looks like it was thrown together by Sid from Toy Story that does what it's supposed to do. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a question for Mr. Davidson. Yeah, you said to sell like your first prototype, like the first month, even if they're ugly or not, to see if they like work well in the market. How about if you did create the first prototype, it worked great. Why not take it to the next level and make the really pretty one? Because I feel like the really pretty one.
Well, yeah. I don't want to get. I think we're mixing what I'm saying. Make the ugly one to solve the problems. Right. You're not going to sell the ugly. Once you've solved the problems, knock them out and start selling the next version.
Right. But my question is, like, should you wait until you get to the really pretty one? That way you have all that hype, like,
no,
with it?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Does anyone know what the biggest risk in starting a company is? Can anyone articulate this for me? The biggest risk.
Let's see, not getting your name out there?
Nope.
Not having a market.
Not making more money than you spend.
Well, so expand on what you just said.
Like if you spend all this time and money on something really pretty and no one really wants it.
That's the risk. Yeah. That no one wants what you're selling. And you would not believe how many things people assume customers will want. And you get it to market and no one wants it. And I had to learn this the hard way. When my team was going around knocking door to door, asking people if they wanted what we were building, they said, absolutely, that sounds great, do it, go make it. We made the mistake of not asking for $1. And the advice you get for free is worth what you paid for it, okay? So you need people giving you dollars as quickly as humanly possible, because until that moment, you don't know anything. So if your prototype, and there's a difference between ugly and like a level that you can't sell. But don't go to the iPod level of beauty before you start selling this thing. The first one that someone will pay for, give it to them in exchange for their money. And from there, just keep moving forward.
And if you look at what Kickstarter is, right? Kickstarter is not raising money, it's pre-sales. Right? It's, I got a product, I can't afford to make 100,000 of them, but I think 100,000 of you guys want it. If you want it, give me 50 bucks, and 6 weeks, 8 weeks out, I'll give you your product. That's what Kickstarter is. And with the exception of the nonprofit side of Kickstarter, I don't know of anyone, I don't think I've ever seen any Kickstarter campaign that didn't involve some sort of pre-sale.
And they don't meet their first deadline. Ever.
Right. That's right. Ever. But it's understood. That's the interesting thing, right? And it's again, it's a great way to gauge the market. How do I, is this going to, and by the way, the artificial web page, just the landing page, is another great way to figure out.
Oh, it's
is it
even
there?
better once you've already getting their credit cards out before you even tell them you don't have it.
Right. Yeah. So
that's the best way you test it. I mean, have an opt-in page and see how many people actually are interested.
Exactly.
We got time for 2 more questions, and then individually ask questions to the panel and kind of work on your businesses with each other. So next question.
So this question is for you. In such a saturated app video game market, how do you go about designing, the next Flappy Bird?
I have about 20 coming out, by the way. Yes, the gaming market, the gaming industry is really saturated, but I select popular games, right? Popular gameplays or popular games. With that said, it's not just selecting that gameplay itself. Actually, kind of reverse engineer everything from what keywords did they use. Look into everything and what they're doing. How does the gameplay work for them? For a good example would be Candy Crush. Do you think that's an original game?
No.
Angry Bird, is that an original game? No. Angry Bird was what? Crush a Castle. Flappy Bird, helicopter. Yeah. Candy Crush, the same thing. It's, Match 3. But if you look at Candy Crush, a lot of people don't know that King made over 100 games. Do you guys know that? You guys know that they were actually mainly casino-style games? If you start playing Candy Crush, you'll start realizing that the audio and everything else is kind of similar to how a gambler would play. These things, this is the stuff that goes through my head all the time when I play a game. So it's not just me selecting a gameplay. It's like, oh, this is going to do really well. Now, I select 5, at least. Okay, so I look at the App Store again, like I said. Yeah, there's a crap load of apps out there. But I know for sure that one of those 5 or 10 games that I make, one of those are going to make a good amount of money. They're not going to make, they're not going to hit top 50. I can make it to go with top 50. If you guys want to know how to do that, I can do that. I just need extra cash flow to do it, but that's another topic. But basically, select the 10 gameplay that's really popular. So if you see a lot of, it depends on the event. So right now, the biggest games that are coming out has to be related to Valentine's, okay? So events matter, not just US events, all over the world, okay? So that's one thing. Other things that you look into the App Store is look at each icons. Are they kind of cutesy characters or like zombies? Zombie characters are always going to be up there. So look at what's consistent. If you see a lot of cute characters popping out in the top 100, at least 50% of the time, guess what? Users are looking for something like that. They download that kind of game. So don't overthink of oh, I'm going to make a new Flappy Bird. You can make a Flappy Penguin or whatever, Flappy whatever. Yeah, I was actually joking around with some people the other day. I was like, just because of the whole thing, I want to make Flappy LLC, which I did. I just have Flappy LLC just for the hell of it. But guess what? I'm going to use that LLC, right? What I'm going to do with that is when somebody searches Flappy in the App Store, guess whose app's going to come up first? Probably mine. Nothing related to app. Nothing has to do with Flappy Bird or anything else like that. Because the algorithm in the App Store is still gauged based on keywords. So all these things relate to a lot of, when you, it's not just based on your game. What I'm basically saying is you need to do a lot of research on the algorithm. Treat the App Store as a search engine, which it is. It's a younger version of Google. So marketers like myself see that. It's like, okay, and you have to look at specific apps that's ranking, that's outranking big companies. Why are they outranking them? These are questions you should be asking. You know, what keywords are they using to outrank King, where they have unlimited funds to do marketing? You know, what did they do? Flappy Bird came out last year. You know, nobody. You know, I talked to Dong. I mean, the thing is that the indie community are fairly close to each other. We actually know each other, all of us. So the funny thing about that is, for him, he considers us more of an artist at the end of the day. He was never looking into like actually making a shitload of money. And the shit that just happened this past week, you know, you guys probably all know, right? You can, if you have iPhone with Flappy Bird, you can sell it on eBay for like $1,000. You guys want? But you know, last thing he said was he wanted to create something that he loved. It's just awesome. For if you're looking to profit from it, you know, for me, I was like, you know, I'll give you $50,000 if you want me to own that brand. But you can still kind of piggyback on those existing apps. That's what I usually do. You know, I'm not doing anything. You know, like gameplays are not trademarked. You can make the same gameplays, whatever you want to do. You know, at the end of the day, but try to look far enough ahead to see what specific niches are hitting. So Google Trends are a great tool to use. See what's going on in the trends. You know, right? If you actually look at the App Store, one thing that I find pretty funny is people are stuck with how Flappy Bird made it, right? If you look at the top 10, you'll see clones of Flappy Birds. Nobody's paying attention to these guys. It's all about Flappy Bird right now. But these guys are making probably more than Dong was making. For one thing, he didn't monetize it properly. So he was using AdMob, which your payouts really relatively decent if you're making that much, if you're getting that many impressions. But the other individuals who are kind of hidden, you know, are probably banking right now from that. And people are just still like, right now Dong has his Flappy Bird app is gone, right? But you realize also that he has like 2 or 3 other apps in the App Store right now in top 10. That's probably making at least $50,000 each every day as well. So going back again with, you know, I kind of went off topic here, but make sure, you know, you do enough research on that theme that you want to pick. So if you want to pick a zombie game, release it during Halloween. Okay? Piggyback on events, certain time frames. Like during Christmas, I made a crap load of money because I launched a bunch of Christmas themed apps. You know, so based it on that, you know, try not to shoot for like I'm gonna make it to the top 50 in the App Store. You can make it to top 50 in the other app stores in other countries. I've done that multiple times, and you can still carry that through. That's what happened with Flappy Bird. It hit multiple different countries, top 10, top 50, whatever. He did it really smart with how he integrated the social media aspect to it. And it's a conversation that my little mastermind group always talk about. And these guys are making millions, and they're always talking about like, okay, without a doubt, he did some black hat there in the beginning. If you guys are not familiar with black hat tactics or anything like that, or gray hat, do you guys know what I mean? For the most part?
No. Can you explain?
If you do shady shit.
That's a pretty good
yeah. So like, basically buying reviews, buying downloads and users. To be honest with you, everybody does it. The big guys does it. I mean, you pay a certain campaign to launch your app. You know, 10,000 reviews. You pay $10,000 to be up there in the App Store, top 25, top 50 for like 48 hours. But what you need to do to make sure you stay up there is obviously you have to rely on all your other external marketing. So if you have a shitty app, that's not gonna last, you know. But if you're just looking to get a spike and make some money, and you have that kind of budget, yeah, you can do that.
Well, we've got just enough time for basically closing remarks.
So I can keep going about
individual questions definitely with the panelists after we close, but closing remarks, do you want to start, Chris, or should we start with Matt?
Let's start with Ryan.
All right.
So there was one last thing that I wanted to go over with you guys. I've met with probably 4 startups in town over the last week or two, and I found myself saying the same thing to each one of them, and I think it's really critical that you guys understand this going forward. I'd like to hear from you really quickly what you think the most critical aspect is in a business. I'd like to know what is on your mind right now when you think about that. The most critical thing to get right. You have any volunteer answers? Yes.
The customer experience.
Okay, customer experience.
The team.
Team. Acceptance.
When do you maximizing profit?
Maximizing profit.
I think novelty, because novelty would keep it going on and everyone wants it.
Okay. Yes.
Sales.
Sales. Okay. Okay. Yes. One more. Can you say a little bit louder? Okay, product selling itself. Okay. I would boil it down to something much simpler than any of those. The key, the most critical part to get right is the problem. There's a lot of people in this town that you will meet. They found this little problem, then they found this solution. And they got so tied to this solution that when they realized it didn't solve this problem, they didn't change the solution, they started changing the problem, right? We know this business model for medicine because they'll try to cure cancer and come up with a pill that, let's say, gives you an erection for 4 hours. You know, and they rebrand that. You see commercials for it all the time. But in a startup, there's no reason to do that because you didn't sink $100 million into that pill. You sunk a couple of weeks in a landing page into your startup. The part you need to always focus on every day in the office is the problem and how you're solving that problem, not the particular solution you have right now. If you remember that, you'll do really well. If you get stuck on having these features and having it look this way and having it feel like this, that's going to be a problem for you because if it doesn't solve the problem, you have nowhere else to go. Mark?
So, yeah, so part of that is what I find myself saying over and over again. It's, you find the problem, do it. Don't sit on it, don't think about it, just do something. Keep focused on the problem, Matt's exactly right. But what I see a lot of the time is him and hawing, well, you know, this is going to work, that's going to work, well, what if I do it this way, what if I... Just do it. Just start. If you don't start, you'll never finish. And I know everybody has these things in their head, but I think when it actually comes down to doing it, as a startup, you have so many choices that a lot of people just sort of freeze. Don't worry about picking the right one. You're going to change. It's absolutely going to change. As long as you stay focused on what you're trying to do, and somebody here said team. That's another critical part because you are going to be married to these people for the next however long it takes you to start up. You're going to see them more than your spouse. You're going to see them more than your kids. You're going to have to really get along. I've seen, once the company has started and they've decided to do it, I've seen a lot of companies, probably more than any other reason, fail because there was one person on the team that threw monkey wrenches into it and didn't get along and for whatever reason. So just do it and make sure you pick the right people. If you have the right people, you'll be able to solve the problem. You'll be able to find a way through whatever. But you're probably going to be selling something completely different than you started.
I absolutely love that you just happened to harp on that. Our next meeting, we have the team for PeerFit, and I think that they definitely are a great example of exactly how a team should be put together, how they should interact. And they're going to be awesome. So just plugging next week's meeting because I forgot to. Erwin?
To follow through with that and follow up with that as well. You know, if you don't get started, you're not going to fail. You can fail a crap load of times. You know, like this is not my first business. I actually had a brick and mortar business as well. I actually ran a whole restaurant. if you're looking for a hard kind of business, that's probably the hardest business out there to be in. You're going to be broke, but you'll still eat because you have free food. So be resilient, be persistent, but learn from the mistakes you actually, make. I do things just knowing that I'm going to fail, but just fail quick, but fail cheap. I always tell people that. So like, I put a certain kind of amount of money and I spread it out a little bit and say, okay, I know 80% of this is probably just going to belly up. Just wanting one of these app that's going to do relatively well, and I can expand from that. And that's typically what I do. Just always do always test. And I always tell people this, test on everything you do. From analytics is like your best friend, okay? A/B test everything. The little button that you put up, test that one out. I released 2 of the same app. 2. I changed the icon and the splash page. Everything else was the same. And Apple let it go through, but I took the other one out. But I knew the other one did really well, so I just took out the other one. So, just test it. Who cares? I've gotten everything from letters or cease and desist letters to just crap load of rejections from Apple. I do that purposely so I know exactly what to expect. So I push apps to I just push a crap load of apps. I do 20 plus apps a week just to find out exactly what app will come back at me with. It's like, hey, your icon is not supposed to be this kind of icon. It's like, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with this, but I'm not going to argue with you because if I argue with you, it's going to be another 3 days. So I'm just going to take that binary out and relaunch it again, and somebody else is going to review it and say, that's fine. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't do it, right? You wouldn't know that you can submit an app a certain time and get approved better than submitting it another time. So those are things that you need to do.
So a corollary to everything we've been saying here is that we're prototyping and everything like that. The whole point is that you got to be determined to finish your idea and get it out, but you have to be willing to change and adapt, once you get going. But you have to be this mix of stubborn and flexible with your idea, and you have to just stick with it and stay with it no matter what. That you want to solve this problem that you're talking about, but you want to be flexible and mold yourself to whatever you learn as you go. And I would say that just continue networking and absolutely just keep trying and keep going for it. Don't let anything stop you or get you down about anything. So just keep going once you get going.
The networking part is actually really important. I would say invest in relationship more than anything. I don't ever burn any bridges. So you never know if you ever need that person again, or that person will ever need you. So invest in connections, invest in relationships. So the people we've met, when I'm happy. If you guys were douchebags, when
Friends are good. Please give our panelists a big round of applause. And I think all of you will be here for a few minutes after the meeting, and people have individual questions or if they want to connect with you to learn more or to, as you just mentioned, network and connect with each other. So thank you. Meeting adjourned. Talk to each other, tell each other about your businesses, and think about failing quickly, failing cheaply.
I got one announcement.
One announcement? All right.
Mr. Martinez, can you hold this for me?
Yeah.
And just keep it pointed at me? Thanks.
Hey guys, real quick. So I still have that offer up, Krispy Kreme donuts for 15 likes. Or not 15 likes, 15 shares for the Facebook events that I post out to market the event. I mean, we can get 30 people to RSVP, so now that's just one more button you gotta press. Share it, that'd be great. And I'll bring in free Krispy Kreme donuts if you guys do at least 15 shares for the next event.
All right, great. All right, thanks to our panelists again, and thanks for everybody for sticking it out.